Hey, Brian, how we doing, brother?
Yep. Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I appreciate your time tonight.
No problem. No problem at all.
All right, guys, we got Brian the Beast on the line here, guys. One of the main Miami personalities, radio. If you listen to any Miami radios, you know who Brian the Beast London is. 2018 Miami News Time Best Radio Personality. You can find him on YouTube, on Twitter. His Twitter is Miami Radio Beast, like it shows on the screen. And you can check out his YouTube, Brian the Beast London. Brian, how we doing tonight, brother?
Yo, guys, I'm doing good. Sorry I'm a little bit late, but better late than never, right?
Amen, brother. Amen, dude. I'm just honored to have you on this show, man. You're a legend. You're a legend to a lot of us.
Please. Check is in the mail. Thank you so much.
Heard that, my man. So let's dive into it. You've been covering Miami for a while. So just what was your opinion of last season? Let's start right there.
Unacceptable. Just completely unacceptable. Possibly the worst season in the modern era of Miami football. Miami's had worse records. There was the 5-6 season, but again, back in '97. But again, that season was plagued by the sanctions and the scholarship losses. Certainly, back in the '70s, Miami had rough times, and the board of trustees was thinking about canceling the program. So there's been rough times in Miami history, but when you put it all together, with a program that's won 5 national championships and losing to the competition that they lost to in Duke, Louisiana Tech, and FIU, I can't make a case that there's been a worse season in the modern era of Miami Hurricanes football. Completely unacceptable to Canes fans and alums like myself who've been with this program through and through.
Was that FIU loss the worst loss in school history, in your opinion?
Possible. Certainly up there with the Louisiana Tech loss, almost as bad, if not worse. I mean, Miami was the only team in the entire bowl season that did not score a point. I mean, that's just embarrassing. It's completely embarrassing, unacceptable. So yeah, it's all bad. There's only levels of bad that came from last year.
Right.
So it's hard to we're splitting hairs if we're trying to figure out which loss was worse.
I agree, man. I think before the season, you couldn't, and I'll just say you couldn't convince me that this season was going to play out like it did, but it did, and we're going to get to the positive things because Miami has been doing a lot of positive things in trying to fix the boat here. But I'll ask you, what grade would you give Manny Diaz year one as the head coach of Miami?
What grade would I give Manny Diaz? I'd have to probably go D. Because, listen, we could talk about, and this is looking forward to, we could talk about all the great things, but again, it all comes down to your record, right? It all comes down to the final results. So, last offseason was great, the portal and showing up to things on yachts, and we're drinking beer, we're having a great time, and we got turnover chains and touchdown rings and all that stuff. But when you go 6-7, that's the bottom line. When you're the only team in the entire country that doesn't score a point in the bowl season, that's the bottom line. So, when you got juniors that are leaving that have no business entering the NFL draft, that's the bottom line. So, I'm sorry. I mean, listen, here's what I think about Manny Diaz. I think eventually he's going to be a good head coach. I think he delegated too much too early, and I think he did a bad job in some of the assistants he hired, obviously on the offensive side of the football, as we read tonight in Barry Jackson's latest Sports Buzz. And this is something I've been saying for months now, and everyone knew it. Dan Enos got along with nobody. The kids didn't like him. They didn't respect him. He didn't fit in with the culture at Miami, and it showed. It showed on the field and off the field. I think Manny, listen, we got to give Manny credit for realizing that he had to make changes, and he's made a ton of changes. But let's not forget, he did the hiring in the first place that got us to this point. I think there was a lot of stuff going on, especially in the offensive side of the football last year with several coaches that really, pardon my French, screwed the pooch for Miami.
Yeah, were you one of the ones that, coming into the season, how did you think that this season was going to play out? Because I thought that it was going to be 9 or 10.
I had swaggering nipples, man. I thought it was going to be a great year, man. I bought in to the to #TNM.
Yeah.
I was all in. A Miami guy coaching Miami, a guy that grew up going to the Orange Bowl. A guy that I really thought, did a great job as a defensive coordinator. And I thought that all the moves that he made last offseason were good. And, I loved at the time, I praised the Dan Enos hire because I'm like, hey, you get a guy from one of the winningest programs, if not the winningest program, the modern era of college football from Alabama. He's been learning under the evil one, Nick Saban, but still, Nick's coaches go on and have some success normally. So I thought it was a good hire at the time, but we were all kind of fooled. And I think we were all went into the season thinking, this is it. We're going to kill it. We're going to build on, where Mark Richt left off, and that didn't happen.
Facts, guys. We got Brian the Beast. You can find him here on YouTube at Brian the Beast. Make sure you check out his channel. Make sure you subscribe to his channel. He's almost to 1,000 subs, so let's help him get there tonight. He's doing me a favor coming on, giving you guys some insight here on Canes After Dark. All right, Brian, so we go through some tough times, and maybe these tough times, we've been going through some tough times, but last year really hurt us, and maybe now some of these moves we can learn from, and we can look into this next season. So let me ask you this. Who has the bigger impact, Rhett Lashley or Ed Reed?
I think the biggest immediate impact is Rhett Lashley, because the offense needs to change, and it needs to change right now. It needs to change yesterday. It needs to change the day before that. It needed to change a lot before that. I was, when you, in retrospect, you're thinking to yourself, Miami and South Florida and the Hurricanes have always been known for the best athletes in the country. How are we not running an offense that caters to that, that caters to speed, that caters to athleticism? And, I mean, every fan that's sitting in, Section 342 could see that we were running the wrong offense for the players that we had on the field. So Rhett Lashley's I think the good thing about Rhett Lashley is that he comes in having been schooled in both aspects of the spread offense. The running spread from Gus Malzahn, that's really run heavy, spread them out and run, that Rich Rodriguez did a lot of at West Virginia and whatnot. And then also the air raid offense, which he learned under Sonny Dykes, and that's where, that's why they brought in the new receivers coach to teach those receivers how to play in a pass-heavy aspect of the spread. So really, you have a guy that's versed in multiple facets of the same offense, and I think it's going to hopefully look pretty good for the Miami Hurricanes. They'll be able to be balanced, but also be a spread, fast-paced, move-the-ball offense, either by the run or the pass. So I think Rhett Lashley is going to have the biggest impact right now. But Ed Reed, I think, is a hire that is a program kind of builder and is about not just now but the future if he's around long enough to have that sort of impact, because he gets it. I can tell you, I've been covering this team, heck, since I was in college, and Ed Reed and I overlapped a little bit at the U. I was a senior; he was a freshman, and then I covered him when he was obviously on the team, and since then. But he's always come back. He's always worked out with the guys. He's always watched film with the guys. He's been at practice coaching guys when you haven't heard about it. He's always cared about this alma mater. He doesn't need the money. So for him to sign up and do this job, this gig of chief of staff, shows you that his dedication is there. And a lot of people are like, well, what is Ed Reed going to bring to the table? You know what Ed Reed's going to bring to the table? He's a freaking Hall of Famer. He knows every aspect of the game of football. He knows what he knows what the best UM football looks like. And there's nothing about that guy that doesn't want to make this team great again. So I think it's a great hire, but I think that one might take a little longer to have an impact than the Lashley hire.
All right, and I'm going to follow this up with a question that we got from the live stream chat. This comes from Sigmund. I hope I pronounced that correctly. If I didn't, I apologize. But he says, do you think the kids will listen, and will Ed Reed have an effect on these kids because it's a newer generation? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, these kids, listen, there's obviously a respect issue, and it's not just on this team. It's on every team. It's with this generation. But there was definitely a lack of respect for the coaching staff last year, especially the offensive coaching staff with guys going out and partying and missing curfew and all that stuff. But guess what? You bring a guy that they all grew up watching play football at the highest level of the game, a guy that has his Hall of Fame jacket, a guy that is possibly one of the greatest, football players, not only to ever play at the U, ever play the game of football. If that doesn't get the attention, I don't know what else you could possibly do. So I think having Ed around automatically is going to make these kids understand what it is to be a Miami Hurricane, and understand that there's a way to do things and a way to get things done. There's no better person to prove how to get to the mountaintop than Ed Reed, right? He's won at every level. He's been to the top. He's in the Hall of Fame. If a kid a recruit wants to come to a place where they can learn from literally the best, they got to come to Miami. And I think the other impact, and I talked about those juniors leaving, that, those three guys aren't going to probably go until day 3 of the NFL draft. Ed Reed came back for a senior season. He didn't have to. He could have left after his junior year, probably get drafted higher. He wanted to win a national championship. He wanted to stay because he loved the U. So the biggest impact I think he can have is maybe, like a couple kids did with Alabama, is try to get some of these juniors who've been making horrible decisions for the past, God, how many years have we seen guys leave early and not get drafted, is maybe explain to them, hey, I stayed. I could have gone in the first round, and I stayed because I wanted to help the team. And hopefully that's the kind of, thing that he instills in them.
Right, and I agree with that. I was actually listening to a podcast, the interview that's going around that he was on. I think it was Leon Stacy's podcast. He was talking about one of his main goals is to get these kids to actually graduate, to come back for that 4th year, like you said. And I think hearing that from somebody who's actually done it, and not only did he come back, graduate, he won a championship, but then he went on to have a great career in the NFL Hall of Fame. And I think hearing that from him should make an impact. I'll ask you this. Take me back to when it happened, when you first got the news update or somebody told you Ed Reed was coming back. What was kind of your initial reaction? What were you doing? Did you go crazy?
Oh, I trying to think of where I was exactly. I was out with my family, but there was definitely, I was screaming. I was going, I love Ed Reed. I think he's my favorite fan of all time. It's either him, Rowan Marley, or Ken Dorsey, between those guys. So I was ecstatic for sure. Had I been home in the confines of my house, I would have been ditching clothing, probably running around my backyard like crazy. But I was so excited because I really have the utmost respect for Ed Reed.
Right, and I'm excited about that. So I know you've done a couple interviews and you've talked about the ALONZO HIGHSMITH possibility. In your opinion, why didn't ALONZO HIGHSMITH to Miami as chief of staff? In your opinion, why didn't that happen?
Because Alonzo, it's my belief that Alonzo wanted a job that was above the head coach, was above Manny Diaz. So the job that he wanted and the job that they were offering were not the same thing. So I think, Alonzo didn't want to come in and answer to Manny Diaz. And Manny Diaz didn't want to answer to Alonzo Highsmith. And Blake James backed his head coach, as did a couple of members of the Board of Trustees. And there was a split. You had a guy like Paul DeMare, not only a member of the Board of Trustees, but one of the biggest donors, and whose son is the baseball coach, put money on the table to want to hire Alonzo Highsmith. And then you had another faction of the Board of Trustees say, no, we're not having somebody else between the athletic director and the head coach. And so the position that Alonzo Highsmith wanted wasn't ever offered to him, so he never took a position. Ed Reed is going to work for Manny Diaz. Now, listen, we can make of that what you will. One guy's a Hall of Famer, the other guy just went 6 and 7. But theoretically, technically, on paper, Ed Reed is going to work for Manny Diaz, and that's not what Alonzo Highsmith was willing to do.
All right, Brian, let's say that you were the athletic director. Let's say you had Blake James' job. Who would you have hired? If both of them put their resume down and said, we're both willing to come to Miami, who would you have hired?
It's a good question. First of all, I try to get both. Here's why. I think Alonzo would have been great in the job that he wanted, which was a job that basically, the reason why, except for Jerry Jones in the NFL, the reason why NFL teams have presidents and GMs and presidents of football operations is because the owners are businessmen and they don't know football. So they have to rely on somebody to be in between the coach and them to handle all of that stuff and translate it for them and bring it back to them. Blake James is not a football guy. His background was in, fundraising and ticket sales and all that stuff, and being an athletic administrator. So having a guy like Alonzo Highsmith that's been was a Packers organization as a scout and in personnel, and then with the Browns as an assistant GM, a guy that knows every aspect of football from personnel to X's and O's, a guy like that in between Blake and Manny, I thought would have been invaluable. It would have given somebody that Blake could rely on to help make decisions regarding coaches, coaching hires. Is Manny doing the right thing by hiring this coach or that coach? But in the end, they didn't want that. So Ed Reed being in this position, whereas he's working with Manny and as a chief of staff, I think you can't do much better than that. But listen, you can't have your cake and eat it too. But I would have loved both situations to happen, but that didn't happen. We have Ed Reed. That's pretty good.
Agree, and I look at that as I do like the background of Alonzo Highsmith, and then you're looking at Ed, but you're looking at Ed Reed. It's just a win-win. And I'm just excited because I think a lot of people didn't think that they would hire an alpha male like a Ed Reed. And like you mentioned earlier, he has won at every spot he's been at. So I'm excited, and I would have been happy with either or. But let's go. Sure, we were at this point. We were excited. We were going crazy. Like you said, we had swagger nipples. And then we got let down. Do you see that happening this year? I mean, are we getting too hyped right now? Or do you see any correlation from last season?
Yeah. Listen, I've been asked this question a million times. I've had this conversation with friends over drinks. And here's what I'm going to say is, listen, be positive. Like, it's great that Manny realized there had to be change, and he made all the changes, and he got the guys that he had to get in the portal, and he got the coaches that he had to get to help his offense, and all of that stuff. And he brought Ed Reed in. Like, you can't have a better offseason. But again, until this team goes out and reels off 10 wins or 11 wins or whatever, I'm sorry. Like, I can't sit and throw confetti everywhere. So I've learned my lesson. I'm not going to get overhyped. If you guys want to do that, that's fine, and maybe they'll all come to fruition. But I keep telling this story, and I'll say it for the rest of my life. The former, one of the best assistant coaches ever to coach at Miami is Don Solinger, right? Had that amazing running backs room with the best running backs ever in the history of college football all playing together. And he was a special teams coach and one of the greatest high school coaches in South Florida. And one of his lines that he used every day, he used to do it at practice, he used to tell me in interviews, to say, you know what, bro? I'm like Missouri. You got to show me. Because Missouri's a show-me state. And that's what I am right now. This team's like Missouri. They got to show me. They got to do it on the field. So it's not that I'm a Debbie Downer or a negative Nancy or any of that stuff. I'm just waiting for the action to happen. Oftentimes now in sports society, we love the transaction more than the action. And I have been caught off guard by that too many times. So I'm going to wait for the action to happen. I'm not making predictions. I'm not going to go crazy and start talking trash. I'm just going to watch it play out.
I like it. We often celebrate the transaction instead of the action. I like that. I'm gonna have to steal that one. Can I steal that one?
Yeah, you know what? Not mine originally. Dan Lebitard uses it a lot. A lot of people use it a lot, but you can use it too, man. Jump in.
Thank you. I like it. So, and I agree with you, man. I just feel like, and not just the last couple years. I mean, we haven't won the ACC. We've only won the Coastal once. If you're the AD, let's put you back in Blake James's shoes. How does Miami get back on top? How do we get back to at least competing to win the ACC, winning the Coastal? How would you start?
It's going to take a myriad of things. First of all, the board of trustees, and a lot of people have to realize, listen, I'm not saying that Blake is perfect or Manny's perfect or anything else, but universities are run by the board of trustees or in board of regents or what have you. There's some universities have presidents that are stronger than others or provosts that are stronger than others. Julio Frank doesn't seem to be a particularly strong president. I think personally, I think he's not done a great job with athletics or anything else for that matter, because the academic standards at the University of Miami, at least the rankings, have fallen dramatically. And I'd like to think that my degree is worth something, but that's a story for a different time. But whatchamacallit, I think the Board of Trustees controls everything at a university, and the Board of Trustees have to decide that they want to be a winning football program, and they have to decide that the money they get from Adidas and the ACC isn't enough, because that's what it is right now. Right now, they know that everything's going to be fine from a business standpoint because they have those two automatic revenue streams coming in from Adidas and the ACC. They don't have to do anything else. The ticket sales, the selling of the shirts, the hats, all of that stuff, that's just frosting on the cake. The real money that runs the athletic department comes from two places, Adidas and the ACC. Once the Board of Trustees decides that, you know what, it's not just enough that we get all this money, we need to actually win, that's when this team is going to be back on top. And it's not just about facilities. Every school has an indoor practice facility. Every school has a great locker room now. Every school has an amazing nutrition program. Every school has got a great weight room. It's not about facilities. It's about the support give your football program. And I think a sign that maybe things are going in the right direction is the hiring of Kelly Lockett as just an assistant, right? He's just going to be an assistant. He's not an official coach. He's going to be an assistant. And the great programs, the Alabamas, I've seen it up close and personal. I know a bunch of people at Alabama in the athletic department or that used to work in the athletic department. Heck, I know assistant coaches up there. They've got 100 of those guys. They've got so many of those guys that they can't fit in the meeting room with standing room only. So when you have a program where you just have so many dudes in khakis running around that aren't coaches, they're not GAs, they're just there to be in operations, to be in video, whatever you want to call them, video assistants. When you have all of those guys running around, that's when you're going to be successful, because now you're running a college football program at the highest level with the highest amount of support.
All right, guys, we got Brian the Beast. You can find him on YouTube at Brian the Beast London. Also, follow my guy on Twitter at Miami Radio Beast, talking everything Miami Hurricanes on Canes After Dark, Monday through Thursday with your boy, NMD TV. All right, so, Brian, you look at the schedule. We got a cupcake schedule. I'm just going to keep it honest with you. It's a cupcake schedule. What are your expectations going into this year?
I mean, as I said, I'm not going to do predictions because I just don't know anymore.
Okay.
I mean, if you showed me the schedule, 15 years ago, I'd be like, oh, that's the 12-0. Like we're winning it all. But that's not reality anymore. So I'm going to stay away from predictions. But I will say this: if Manny doesn't win 9 games with the schedule, he's probably going to have to get on Indeed.com and start looking for a job. And Blake James probably will be with him. I think 9 wins at the least is the amount of wins that this team has to get for people to save their jobs. Anything less than that is going to be an utter disappointment with this schedule. I'd like to see them win 10 or more games, but I'm not going to get my hopes up yet until I actually see some action on the field.
What do you say to the people that there are a group of people who think a coach needs more than 2 years to turn around a program or to get a program going right? What do you say to those people?
I say this: if things go badly, then what must happen eventually should happen immediately. In other words, if things are trending in the wrong direction and eventually you think, you know what, Manny Diaz may not be cut out for this job, then you might as well cut your losses. Now, listen, he's got everything that he needs to turn this thing around in a year. And I'm not saying he has to go out and win a national championship, but certainly competing and winning the Coastal has got to be something they have to do. They've got, as you said, they've got a schedule on paper that should be one that they can handle. They've made all these off-season moves. This should be a year that Manny is able to get it all together, right? He learned from his mistakes. He understands what he has to do better. He got a better staff. This should be a year where he goes out and turns this thing around. And if he doesn't, if it's another bad year, I'm sorry. I understand 2 years isn't a huge sample size, but I've seen enough.
And what you also said, Blake James, and these are debates that I have on a every day. Some people say being an athletic director is more than just a football team. Blake, the baseball team is good. Girls basketball is good. What would you say to somebody who has that defense for Blake James, that an athletic director's job isn't all about football, that he's been successful in other sports?
No, yeah, obviously, listen, the athletic director is about a lot of things. But listen, the highest profile thing on the UM campus, other than the medical school, is the football team. And this offseason, Blake James tied himself to Manny Diaz by 1, keeping him, and 2, telling Alonzo Highsmith, no, we don't want anyone overlooking Manny Diaz. That's what I'm here for. That's when he decided to, that they're handcuffed together. They're tiptoeing through the tulips together. So if things don't go well football-wise this year, I know that Blake has done a great job in fundraising. He's done a great job in a lot of the other hires he's made, a lot of other stuff that's been done. But unfortunately, and I love Blake, and I've known him since 1999 when he was at UM the first time around. I'm unfortunately, he's tied to Manny Diaz at this point. His success is going to be tied to the success of Manny Diaz.
All right, guys. Let me ask you, what are your thoughts on the transfer portal?
You know what? I love it. I love it both ways because I think one, it's almost like playing the free agent game in the NFL. But it also is good. It's always good to get kids coming your way, but
right.
It also gives kids a chance that, may not, for whatever reason, see the field on your team, gives them a chance to go and get a fresh start somewhere else. A kid like Patchen that had multiple injuries and, probably wasn't going to start. Like, now he gets a chance to go start. And so I think it works both ways. I think it's a great thing. Now, I think we get a little bit hyped over it. Although, listen, if Derek King and Roche and these guys are as good as I think, then maybe it's worth it. But I think it's been great so far.
All right, so we had Cleveland Reed go into the transfer portal, and then he went in, and then he came back to the team. We have a receiver right now, Brian Hightower, in the transfer portal, and there's been some rumblings that he may return to the team. Now, I'm a type of guy where I feel like if you tell your teammates and your coach that you're entering the transfer portal, that's kind of like you gave up on the team, unless it's obviously a life or death, or a family member sick or something like that. But how do you feel about players going into the transfer portal and then the coaches letting them come back? I mean, what do you think about that?
Listen. If a kid is going to look for another opportunity because they're not getting on the field and they have to come back, well, then they're going to have to prove themselves to get back on the field, no matter where they are. So, I mean, a guy like Hightower, if he ends up coming back, well, that's fine. It might be an uncomfortable situation for him. But if he can prove himself to his teammates and his coaches that he deserves to be on the field and he can play like he's supposed to, then I don't really care, man. I just want to, again, it goes back to the Missouri thing. Just show me.
Gotta show you. What do you think's Miami's biggest concern going into this season?
What was that? What is their biggest concern?
Yeah. What do you think are our biggest concern going into this season?
Linebackers, lots of linebackers.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you lost two guys that were leaders on your team, and two guys that were staples of your program, and were part of a great defense. So I think that's a huge concern. And you know what? I think leadership's a big concern. I mean, I know we've seen Cam Harris on Twitter step up a little bit, but you've lost your leader on your defense in Shaq Quarterman, who may have been the leader of the team, and your leader on offense in DJ Dallas. You have to have leadership. You have to have leadership in that locker room. The locker room has to patrol itself. You have to have those guys that when someone misses curfew, you don't need a coach to step in and punish someone. The team does it for them, man. I mean, you listen to those Canes, Ed Reed will tell you, Romberg will tell you, all those guys will tell you that when someone screwed up, they took it upon themselves to punish them. The coaches didn't have to get involved. All that had to happen was those kids had screwed up, had to walk into the locker room, and the lights would be turned off, and they'd get punished themselves. So, leadership is huge inside a college football locker room, and I worry about that. I want to see who's going to step up and be the leaders and hold kids accountable because, back when this team was cranking off wins, it was the leaders of the team that said, hey, guys, I know the coaches just gave us off on Sunday, but we're coming in and we're going to be in the sandpit. We're going to go push trucks. We're going to go do X, Y, and Z. We don't care about what the coaches are telling us. We're going to do it ourselves. That's when you have winning football, is when you have leaders that can motivate the guys around them to put in that extra work, behave the way they're supposed to behave, because it all shows on the field.
Right, yeah. Like you said, we're going to be losing Shaq. Bandy's gone. Pickney. The defense at a leadership position, I think, is going to look big difference. I actually thought KJ Osborne is kind of a guy who came in, and I really wouldn't know if he was a leader or not. I wasn't inside the locker room, but I could tell you it just seems like that cat was always working out after practice, always putting in extra work. And I think like you said, we need more guys like that. Give me some things that you're excited about next season.
Well, I mean, the biggest thing is King, man. I mean, again, going back to Barry Jackson's column that he wrote tonight for the Herald, Florida Sports Buzz, getting it done. The NFL scouts' opinion of the quarterbacking for the University of Miami, where he basically said it was embarrassing last year. That shows you where Miami was. And the thing I'm most excited about is De'Aaron King, because this kid can get it done. He's an amazing athlete. He can chuck the ball. He can run the ball. Man, he started out as a receiver. He can catch the ball. He was the guy that kept Kyle Trask off the field at the high school in Texas. That's why Trask never started until he got to this point at Florida, because De'Aaron King was ahead of him at that high school. So that's the thing I'm most excited about, is having a real quarterback at a place that used to be called Quarterback U.
Facts. De'Aaron King mixed with a Rhett Lashley's offense, I feel like if it fell into our hand, I mean, the coaches, they went out and made it happen. But kind of like you said, we got to see it on the field. But I'm definitely excited about those two guys. Did you watch the Fox Sports, the reunion? Did you watch that?
You know what? I did not watch it yet. I know I've let everyone down.
Dang.
It's like sitting there waiting to go. I can't believe I didn't watch it, but I had some stuff going on that night. I will get to it. I heard it was just simply amazing.
It was good. One of the things they talked about is who was the greatest Miami Hurricane. So I think you mentioned Ed Reed. Who would you say is the greatest Miami Hurricane, and why?
For me, I mean, listen, it's hard to make a case for someone being better than Ed Reed.
Right.
It really is. I mean, he was unbelievable. Now, Sean Taylor was, again, unbelievable. But I think I would take Ed over Sean. Again, like, we're splitting hairs. Like, right. You could bring me Michael Irvin, and I would tell you were right? You could tell me Bernie Kosar, and I would tell you could make a case for that. I mean, Miami has produced so many amazing players. How are you supposed to pick one? I mean, it's like my favorite artist is Bob Marley, and you want to ask me what my favorite Bob Marley song is? Like, I can't do that. Like, I don't know. Is it No Woman, No Cry? Is it Get Up, Stand Up? Is it I Shot the Sheriff? I don't know. Like, I can't pick that, but I don't think you can go wrong, with an Ed, with a Sean, with a Michael Irvin. You want to say Ray Lewis? Fine. You want to see Warren Sapp? Fine. Like, there's so many. There's too many for me to say one. Okay,
let's say it's we got one play left in the game, and we got to score a touchdown. You get to pick the receiver. You're the quarterback. You get to throw it to one receiver. Are you throwing it to Michael Irvin, Reggie Wayne, or Santana Moss?
Ooh. Oh, man. I mean, and you're not even including the tight ends in there. Because, I mean, I could certainly make a case for Jeremy Shockey being involved in that end of the game situation. Man,
I didn't even mention Andre Johnson. I love
Reggie. I love Santana. I saw Reggie do things up in Boston College in a double overtime game that were amazing when he was a freshman. I saw Santana turn in from being a guy that was wearing number 48 on a track scholarship into one of the most dynamic college football players I've ever seen. But I don't think I can go against the playmaker. I don't.
Right. Who reps to you more than anybody, in your opinion? No wrong answer here. Who do you think reps to you more than anybody?
Who reps to you more than anybody?
Yeah.
Man.
Tough questions tonight. Tough questions.
I mean, just because of his persona and he's in the media, I would probably say Michael Irvin, because he's just on TV every week and he's a dynamic personality. But I mean, that's the question. Like, you could say The Rock. I mean, you're not wrong with any of them. I mean, right. I think all the guys that have won, and even some of the guys that haven't, like, they know what the program's about. They understand that it's a brotherhood. They understand that their blood bleeds orange and green, and they go out there and it's once a Kane, always a Kane, and they are all family. Even if they play 20 years apart, they consider themselves brothers, and they all do a great job of repping the U. But listen, Mike has been carrying that flag for a long time on TV and in the public persona, so I think he reps it about as well as anybody.
Right. Yeah, I think he goes. I still remember was it the Florida State game when he had the video that looked like he was going to have like a heart attack? Or he's like, Miami won the game. And I'm like, yes.
Man. I mean, Mike can give a speech, man. He can fire you up.
He should be a motivational speaker. I've always said that. I think he should be a motivational speaker.
Well, yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, him, Ray, there's Michael Barrow used to be. I mean, I remember when Michael Barrow played for the Giants, whenever Miami would go up and play Rutgers, they'd bring Michael Barrow in secretly the night before a game to give a rousing pep talk. And Mike, is a pastor as well. And man, he would make you see the light the night before a game in a pep talk. So there's a bunch of guys that can do that. But the playmaker can rev you up.
Give me the most underrated Miami Hurricane that a lot of people don't talk about. Maybe most underrated Miami Hurricane in your opinion.
Most underrated Miami Hurricane. That is a good question. Wow. You hit me off guard with that one, but just because he's on my mind, I'm going to go with the Rat, man. Number 2. The son of Bob Marley, Rowan Marley, man.
Yeah.
He was undersized, came from Jamaica, knowing soccer, got to Palmetto and played football, and man, his side-to-side movement on the field, his tenacity, his hitting power for such a small guy, what he did in practice. I remember watching him in practice, going, man, this kid is like different. How is someone that's not the same size as, a Barrow, Armstead, and all of those guys? How is the guy that's not the same size bringing the same kind of pain? So I'll go with the Rat. I'll go with my boy Rowan as one of the most underrated Canes of all time.
All right, guys. We got Brian the Beast on the line. One more question for you, Brian. Your favorite moment as a Miami Hurricane fan, just something you experienced. Maybe you watched it or you were at the game. What comes to mind when people ask you about Miami football that you've experienced?
Favorite moment. I mean, that's tough. I'll give you like maybe 5.
Okay. I got time.
In no particular order, I'm gonna go Brock Berlin running down and giving the choke and the Gator chomp to the Gator fans in that game after Frank Gore scored to win the game. I give you Devin Hester in the same game, opening kickoff run back for a touchdown. I give you Michael Barrow absolutely killing Tamarick Vanover. I give you that one. I give you, you know what? I think Dorsey to Shockey I mean, I've never. I thought the Orange Bowl was going to come down. Like I was in the radio booth, and I thought the Orange Bowl was going to come down when Dorsey hit Shockey, and Shockey puts his arms up.
Mm-hmm.
That was amazing. And then, of course, all the wide rights and wide lefts. Anytime you beat FSU, I don't care how it is, that's going to be up there. But there's something special about beating the Gators. Heck, even Mo Sykes' return for a touchdown up in Gainesville was amazing. What made it even more amazing is Lamar Thomas was on the sideline that day and was literally just yelling at like Florida sorority girls to the point where they started crying. And it was an unbelievable moment.
All right, man. Hey, Brian, man, I really appreciate your time tonight. Real quick, man, let everybody know what you got going on. I know you got a lot going on with YouTube, in the social media game.
Yeah, man. So I got a lot of stuff going on, which is, listen, I got the YouTube channel. If you want to find it, the best way to find it is go to my Twitter or Instagram or TikTok and look in the bio. It's there. Okay. But it's Brian the Beast London, the Beast on. Hoping to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of February and keep the electric on in the house. That'd be good. So we do YouTube videos. I just put one up a little while ago where I did a movie review with my son. So we do a bunch of games, do a bunch of sports, do a bunch of stuff outside of sports too on that. And you can follow me on social media at Miami Radio Beast. And tomorrow night, I'm starting something new with a company called Hot Mic. Download the app, Hot Mic, where people can watch games with me. And I do a talk show and interact with guys while we're watching the same game. So tomorrow night's game is a 10 o'clock Clippers game. And if you go to Hot Mic and plug in The Beast, all caps, one word, THEBEAST, you and I can go at it during the Heat Clippers game tomorrow night. So that's what I got going on, man.
All right. It's called the Hot Mic?
It's called Hot Mic, yeah.
Okay, awesome. You think Miami's going to beat the Clippers? They looking good this year.
Yeah, no, I like the Heat. I like the Heat this year, but they got some injury issues. We got, Myers Leonard and Justice Winslow aren't making the trip, and Tyler Hero might be a little bit banged up. So we'll see. We'll have to see what happens and what kind of lineup Spo rolls out there against the Clippers tomorrow night.